Okay, folks, strap in, because today we're going deep, deep into the mind of Sunny Jetsun.
Oh, yeah.
The poet, Sunny. You shared his book, 39 Cosmic Shamanic, with us.
Yes.
And wow, what a wild ride, huh?
It really is.
It's like Hunter S. Thompson meets Rumi, but then you like sprinkle in a little something you'd find, in the back room of a head shop.
Yeah.
Sunny's a guy who's seen it all, right?
Right.
I mean, from the psychedelic haze of the 60s, to those dusty trails in India. He's just soaked it all up, and it spills out in his writing
Right.
in this incredible, sometimes kind of unsettling way.
It is. And what I find so interesting is how he blends all these different experiences. He doesn't just tell you about a drug trip. He makes you feel like you're on the drug trip.
Yeah, for sure.
His use of language is like a kaleidoscope. All these vibrant images and bizarre juxtapositions that just capture that feeling of an altered state.
Exactly. It's like you're reading along, and all of a sudden you're thrown into this scene where, I don't know, Persian lustfulness is like strolling through a garden while flirting Mayor Roxanne is riding on the back of Cantric Aristotle. I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But somehow it works. It pulls you into this strange, dreamlike world where like the normal rules, they just don't apply.
Yeah, that's a great example of what we call a stream of consciousness writing.
Okay.
It's like capturing that raw, unfiltered flow of thoughts and emotions as they happen, without trying to impose any kind of logical order or structure.
Yeah.
It's a technique often used by writers who are trying to replicate, the feeling of a psychedelic experience or a dream.
And Sunny definitely it doesn't shy away from the psychedelic aspect of things. I mean, he name drops it all, right? Hashish, LSD, MDMA.
Oh, yeah.
The whole psychedelic buffet.
Whole buffet.
And it's not just casual mentions, He describes the effects on his perception in a way that, makes you feel like you're the one tripping balls.
Yes, his descriptions are so vivid and visceral. He's not just saying, I took LSD and saw things. He's painting these incredibly detailed pictures with words, capturing the way that those substances warp reality, amplify your sensations, and just blur the lines between what's physical and what's spiritual.
And it's not just the psychedelic stuff that's wild, right? This dude goes deep, deep into some seriously controversial territory.
Yeah, for sure.
We're talking lines about, like Satanists drinking the blood of children.
Wow.
Explicit descriptions of the sex trade in Thailand.
Right.
And observations about equality that are, well, let's just say they're open to interpretation.
Yeah.
This is definitely not your grandma's poetry book.
It's definitely provocative, and it's important to remember, that we're not here to endorse or condemn Sunny's views. We're here to unpack them, to understand the context in which they were written, and to explore what they might reveal about his worldview.
Right. Because it would be easy to, dismiss him as some shock jock trying to get a rise out of people.
Right.
But I think there's more to it than that. It's like he's deliberately pushing boundaries, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us.
He's definitely challenging societal norms, and he does it in a way that can be both exhilarating and unsettling.
Totally.
It's like he's holding up a mirror to our collective shadow, forcing us to look at the parts of ourselves that maybe we'd rather keep hidden.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting, because for all the darkness and depravity that he explores, there's also this undeniable sense of wonder, this deep reverence for the beauty of the natural world, and especially for women.
That's a great point. There is this tension in his work between the sacred and the profane, the spiritual and the sensual. And women often seem to occupy this liminal space, embodying both the allure of physical beauty and the divine feminine energy that he so clearly reveres.
Yeah, and it's reflected in the way he writes about them.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have these incredibly romantic, almost surreal lines like, her eyes were galaxies and her smile a supernova. But then, he also delves into graphic descriptions of sexual encounters that could be seen as objectifying or even, exploitative.
It's complex, and it's something that, we'll need to dig into more as we go deeper into his work. But it's important to note that, this tension it's present throughout the book. Sunny's constantly pushing us to confront the contradictions within ourselves, to see the light and shadow in everything, to acknowledge that messy, complicated nature of human existence.
Totally. It's like he's saying, hey, look, life is a goddamn mess.
Right.
It's beautiful. and terrifying, sacred and profane all at the same time. Don't try to sanitize it or pretend it's something it's not. Just embrace the chaos.
And that's a challenging invitation.
Yeah.
It requires us to be honest with ourselves, to confront our own shadows, and to be willing to sit with the discomfort of not having all the answers.
Okay, so we've talked about Sunny's wild style, his penchant for controversy.
Yeah.
But what really struck me was a poem called Paradise Heaven. It's only 2 pages long, but man, it packs a serious emotional punch. For me, it really captures that tension we were just talking about, the way he blends the beauty and darkness, the wonder and the anxiety, all into this incredibly vivid experience.
That's a great choice. Paradise Heaven is it's one of the more introspective pieces in the collection, and it really showcases Sunny's ability to convey the feeling of a transcendent experience, that sense of awe and wonder that can come from connecting with nature or with something larger than yourself.
Exactly. And it also hints at, like, this recurring theme in his work, this idea of reality as an illusion, or at least something far more fluid and malleable than we typically perceive it to be.
Before we dive into that, let's actually hear the poem. Maybe you could read it for us.
Yeah, sure.
I think hearing Sunny's words aloud will really help bring it to life.
Okay, here goes. This is Paradise Heaven from pages 171 and 172 of 39 Cosmic Shamanic. And just a heads up, there's some strong language here, so if you're listening with little ones, you might want to skip ahead.
All right, so set the scene for us. Where does this poem take place?
So Sunny's on a beach in Thailand.
Okay.
You can practically, like, feel the heat,
Yeah.
the sand between your toes, the sun beating down.
Yeah.
And he's describing this incredible sunset, the colors, the light reflecting on the water.
Mm-hmm.
But then something kind of shifts.
What happens?
He starts questioning his own perception.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's like, what is real? Am I alive or dead?
Yeah.
Dead in the universe.
Well,
It's as if the sheer beauty of the moment, has just cracked open something inside of him.
yeah.
And he's like having this existential crisis right there on the beach.
It's like he's experiencing ego death. That feeling of your sense of self dissolving as you merge with something larger. It's a common theme in mystical traditions and psychedelic experiences.
And he describes it in such a, like, visceral way.
Yeah.
He talks about the sun's white golden beams reflecting changing frequencies in the purple ripples.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's seeing the world through new eyes, like perceiving the energy and vibration, behind the physical forms.
And then there's that line, my dimension is moving. What is real? Am I alive or dead? Dead in the universe.
Yeah,
That's powerful stuff.
it really is.
It speaks to that sense of disorientation, the feeling of being unmoored from your usual reality.
And he's grappling with the implications, like, if this experience is real, then what does that mean for his everyday life? If reality is this fluid, this malleable,
Right.
then what does it say about, like, who he is, who we all are?
It's a question that runs through a lot of Sunny's work. He's constantly pushing us to question our assumptions about reality, to
Yeah.
see beyond the surface of things, to consider the possibility that there's more to life than meets the eye.
But it's not all cosmic pondering and mind-bending epiphanies, right?
Yeah.
He also brings it back down to earth,
Yeah.
back to the physical reality of that beach in Thailand. He describes, the textures of the soft sand, the taste, the chills unknown. It's like he's trying to anchor himself in the tangible, in the sensory experience,
Yeah.
as a way of, like, grounding himself amidst all the metaphysical swirling.
Yeah, I think that grounding is important. It's like he's reminding us that even as we explore these altered states of consciousness, we still have bodies, we still exist in the physical world, and we have a responsibility to ourselves and to each other.
Right. And that brings us back to something we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
Sunny's views on women.
Right.
Because even in this poem, where he's talking about these transcendent experiences, there's still this underlying tension between reverence and objectification.
It's something that requires a nuanced discussion. There's no denying that some of his language and imagery can be problematic, especially when viewed through a modern lens.
Right.
But I think it's also important to consider, the context in which he was writing, the cultural influences that shaped his worldview.
Yeah, he came of age during a time of, intense social and sexual liberation.
Right.
And those influences are definitely reflected in his work.
Yeah.
But there's also a clear sense of awe and respect for women, particularly for their creative and spiritual power.
He talks about the famine divine, a concept that points to the sacred feminine energy that he sees as essential to life and creation, and he often uses language that's both romantic and reverent when describing women.
Like, remember that line from earlier, her eyes were galaxies and her smile is supernova. That's not exactly your typical objectifying language. It suggests a sense of wonder, of being captivated by a woman's beauty and power.
And it's important to note that, he advocates for equality, both physical and spiritual. He challenges traditional gender roles and celebrates the strength and resilience of women.
It's messy, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what makes Sunny's work so compelling. He's not afraid to grapple with the complexities, the contradictions, the light and shadow that exist within himself and within the world.
And that's what we're trying to do here, right? To unpack those complexities, to explore the different facets of his worldview, and to offer a nuanced perspective on his work.
Exactly, because I think there's a lot to learn from Sunny, even if you don't agree with everything he says or the way he says it.
Yeah.
He challenges us to think differently, to question our assumptions, and to be more open to the mysteries and possibilities of life.
And that's a valuable lesson, especially in a world that often tries to simplify everything, to put things in neat little boxes, and to avoid uncomfortable conversations.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sunny's work is like a jolt to the system, a reminder that life is messy, chaotic, and full of contradictions.
Yeah.
And that's okay. In fact, it's in those messy, contradictory spaces where the most interesting things happen.
Absolutely. It's where we find the potential for growth, for transformation, for breaking free from the limitations of our own limited perspectives.
So as we continue our deep dive into Sunny's world, let's keep that in mind. Let's be open to the unexpected, to the challenging, to the things that make us uncomfortable. Because it's in those moments of discomfort where we're most likely to discover something new, something that expands our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And let's not forget the humor. Sunny's got a wicked sense of humor, and he often uses it to highlight the absurdity of life, to poke fun at our self-importance, to remind us not to take ourselves too seriously.
Oh, absolutely. Like that line about the condoms he thought were biscuits. I mean, come on, that's pure gold.
It's those moments of levity that keep his work from feeling, too heavy, too preachy. He's not trying to force his beliefs on anyone. He's simply sharing his experiences, his insights, and his unique perspective on life.
And it's up to us as readers to decide what we take from it, what resonates with us, and what we choose to leave behind.
Right. It's an invitation to engage in a dialogue, to grapple with the complexities, and to form our own opinions.
Okay, so we've talked about Sunny's surreal writing style, his controversial views, and his complex portrayal of women. We've explored the themes of reality versus illusion, the search for meaning, and the tension between the sacred and the profane. But there's one more aspect of his work that I think deserves some attention, and that's his critique of power.
That's a good point. He's definitely not afraid to call out hypocrisy and corruption, whether it's in government, religion, or everyday life.
Exactly, and he doesn't just point fingers from a distance.
Right.
He implicates himself, acknowledging his own complicity in systems of oppression and violence. It's like he's saying, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm part of this messed up system too.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't try to change it.
It's that willingness to be self-critical, to own his own flaws, that makes his critique of power so powerful. He's not, just preaching from a pedestal. He's speaking from a place of experience, of struggle, of confronting his own shadows.
And it's not like, he only focuses on the big stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
He also kind of turns that critical lens inward.
Yeah.
Examines, his own motivations, desires, and shortcomings.
Yes, he's very much aware of his own shadow.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from exploring those, darker impulses within himself.
Yeah.
In fact, he seems to embrace them as part of the wholeness of his being.
There's this line that really struck me. He says, I've been a right cunt sometimes in my life, no doubt about it. But even that darkness, that capacity for cruelty, it's all part of the dance.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, look, I'm not going to pretend to be some enlightened guru. I'm just a dude trying to figure things out, and I'm going to fuck up along the way. But even those fuck ups, they have something to teach me.
It's a radical act of self-acceptance, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, this is who I am, flaws and all, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm going to own it, integrate it, and use it as fuel for my growth.
Exactly. And it's that honesty, that willingness to be like vulnerable,
Yeah.
and expose his own darkness that makes his critique of power so much more like potent.
Right.
He's not coming from a place of judgment or, self-righteousness. He's coming from a place of deep self-awareness and a desire for like radical transformation,
Yeah.
both personally and collectively.
And that's what makes his work so relevant. Even, decades after it was written, he's grappling with questions that are still very much alive for us today. Questions of, power, of identity, of the meaning and purpose of life in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming.
And he's doing it in a way that's like both thought-provoking and entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
It's like he's inviting us to come along on this wild, mind-bending journey with him. He's not going to sugarcoat it or give us easy answers.
Right.
He's going to make us laugh, make us think, maybe even make us a little uncomfortable along the way.
And in that discomfort and that willingness to confront the messy complexities of life, we might just find, a glimmer of hope, a spark of something that ignites our own inner fire and inspires us to create a more beautiful, more just, more loving world.
Beautifully said. And I think that's the perfect note to end on. So to our listener who shared 39 Cosmic Shamanic with us, thank you for taking us on this incredible trip. It's been a wild ride full of unexpected twists and turns, moments of profound insight, and a whole lot of laughs along the way.
And for those of you who haven't yet encountered Sunny Jetsun's work, I encourage you to dive in. Just be prepared for a journey that will challenge your assumptions, expand your perceptions, and leave you forever changed.
Until next time, keep those minds open, those hearts ablaze, and those curiosity fires burning. This has been The Deep Dive, and we'll catch you on the next intellectual adventure.